Welcome to African Hearts for Peace, where Africa speaks for itself, where truth is unchained, and where a new era of strength and self-reliance begins. I am Abebe, and I am here to challenge everything you have been told about Africa's place in the world. For too long, we have been conditioned to believe that progress comes from the hands of foreign powers, that our future depends on aid, and that we must always look outside our solution for solution. That ends now. African Hearts for Peace is here to break the chains of dependency, expose the truth about global influences in Africa, and ignite the spirit of self-reliance and unity. We will ask the hard questions. Has foreign aid truly helped Africa, or has it kept us weak? Why do African leaders turn to global superpowers instead of their own people? Can Africa rise without begging for assistance? What is stopping Africa from claiming its rightful place as a global powerhouse? This is a space for those who dare to think differently, those who refuse to be silenced, those who know what Africa's destiny must be written by Africans, not dictated by outsiders. Through powerful discussions, through provoking narratives, and solution-driven dialogue, African Hearts for Peace will challenge the status quo and bringing together the voice of Africa's thinkers, builders, and change makers. To every African watching, this is your time. This is your call. This is your moment. Please subscribe, engage, and most importantly, take action. African Hearts for Peace, the future is ours to claim. Let's begin. Breaking free. Africa's crossroads. Aid or independence? Introduction. For decades, Africa has been caught in a web of foreign aid. Money flows in, projects are funded, but where does it all lead? Has any truly developed Africa, or has it kept the continent in cycle of dependency? Today, we stand at a crossroads. The US government has decided to pull USAID out of Africa. For some, this is a crisis. For others, it is a long overdue wake-up call. But what if this is the greatest opportunity Africa has had in modern history? What if aid has been a comfortable chain keeping Africa from standing on its own? This is not a time to panic. This is a time for action, a time to reclaim sovereignty, a time for Africa to look within itself and finally break free from the grip of dependency. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Aid. Foreign aid has been sold as a solution to Africa's problems. Food security, healthcare infrastructure. Yes, aid has supported these areas, but here is the hard truth. After trillions of dollars in aid over the decades, why is Africa still struggling? If aid truly helped, shouldn't Africa be self-sufficient by now? Shouldn't poverty and hunger be things of the past? Or is it possible that aid has been designed not to help Africa rise, but to keep it under control? With it, there comes a lot of garbages. Even democracy is not working in Africa. Think about this. How many African leaders have used foreign aid to build their nations instead of filling offshore bank accounts? How many projects funded by aid actually lead to long-term development rather than short-term relief? Now that USAID is leaving, African leaders have a choice. Will they finally take responsibility and invest in their own people, or will they turn to another foreign power to keep the cycle of dependency alive? Will they sell land for the Arabs, the Chinese, name it, or any other neo-colonialist? Chapter 2. Africa's real truth. Real wealth is not aid, it's its people. Africa is rich, not because of foreign aid, but because of its people and natural resources. Yet, the wealth of the continent is often stolen, extracted, and exported while Africans remain poor. What if African nations started processing their own raw materials instead of exporting them cheaply to foreign markets? What if African governments invested in local manufacturing instead of waiting for donations? What if African youth took a charge building their own future instead of looking for a way out? Here is a question for every African listening. Why should the continent that leads the world still rely on handouts to feed itself? This is the time for Africa to turn inward. The energy, the intelligence, the innovation, everything needed to succeed is already here. The only thing missing is the will to act. In chapter 3, the trap of looking to other superpowers. Some leaders may see USAID's exit as a chance to turn to new foreign powers, China, Russia, the Gulf states, or the European Union. But let's be clear, switching masters is not liberation. Will Africa trade one foreign dependency for another? Or will it finally stand on its own feet? China will build roads, but who controls them? Russia will offer security, but at what price? The Gulf state will invest, but who owns the land? African leaders must resist the temptation of easy money. And instead of turning to new global powers for handouts, they must invest in African industries, African agriculture, African education, and African infrastructure without surrendering control. And chapter 4 is a call to action. The future is ours to build. This is a defining moment. Africa will not collapse without USAID. It will either rise or be swallowed by new exploiters. To every African listening, what role will you play? Will you demand accountability from your leaders? Will you push for real investment in your country? Will you choose to build instead of waiting for help? To African leaders, this is your test. Will you lead with vision, or will you sell Africa's future for short-term gain? Will you let history remember you as the ones who liberated Africa, or as the ones who lost its greatest chance? The world is watching, but more importantly, Africa is watching itself. Now is the time to rise. Now is the time to build. Now is the time to break free. The future belongs to those who dare to claim it. Will Africa claim its own destiny? That's a question we leave you today.